All right, delegates discarded. And some of us may have to leave to go to rules, so don't take that as we're against your 4-year bill.
No, I'm going to try to. We all have to be in rules at 4 o'clock, so anyway. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I've got 1,800 here. Very good year. And it's about power purchase agreements, and I should preface my comments about this bill that there's been a lot of activity in this area in the last 6 months, and a lot of really good work that's been done. And I think there are going to be a number of bills that make incremental changes that are positive changes in Virginia on the solar front. That being said, part of my role is always to try to push you, and that's what this bill tries to do. Is to
And you have been.
And I have been pushing you, and I expect that the push will continue to come because things are changing pretty quickly in this arena, and we want to make sure we can take advantage of that. There are 2 principles that I'd like to talk about. Principle number 1 is that ratepayers ought to have more choice. Principle number 2 is that consumers should have more control over the power that they purchase. So a couple of years ago, you might recall, I had a bill that established a pilot program for power purchase agreements. And it worked pretty well. And so what this bill tries to do is take it to the next step. What it would do would be to currently it would currently allow this PPA program to be expanded to more consumers and to take advantage of the numerous private entities that are out there who are willing to offer to construct these solar arrays and get more solar energy on the grid. I have some folks from Secured Futures to speak to the bill, and I hope you'll indulge them for a few minutes before we take questions.
Yes. All right, Secured Futures.
Good afternoon. I'm representing the Virginia Distributed Solar Alliance, and we are here to support HR 1800. The members of the Alliance represent developers and installers who have stood up the majority of solar projects in the state of Virginia. These projects provide consumers with reliable, affordable, and clean energy. In addition, all of these companies are expanding Virginia's economy through jobs that can be outsourced to China and are using products that are built and made here in the United States. We support 1800 because it will expand the use of PPAs throughout the Commonwealth. Thank you very much.
All right. Next.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, and it's good to see you. I want to just build on what Karen Torrent just mentioned in support of this bill. We think that it's a very strong way to show support for renewable energy and jobs in Virginia. Thank you. Oh, okay. I'm CEO of Secure Futures. We're a Stanton-based solar company, and to date we're the leading commercial solar development company in Virginia. With many thanks to some of the barriers that were reduced for solar, Mr. Delegate Hugo, we appreciate your support in previous years on the M&T tax abatement for solar. So there are many members in this committee who've had a direct hand in reducing barriers for solar. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ryan Coles with Alt Energy, and we support the House Bill 1800. It will provide jobs and private sector jobs for Virginia, and we are an installer, and we have installed across the state, and we do support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cameron Stalker with Segura Solar, and I just want to make note that we're in support of the House Bill 1800 as well, as the same remarks that everyone else has made. Thank you very much.
Valley, Maine. I write a blog called Power for the People VA. It's centered on energy in Virginia, and today I'm also, for this purpose, speaking for the Sierra Club. We support this bill. I think one of the things that maybe isn't obvious is that this is kind of a compromise. The members of the solar industry have been trying to find a way to bring power purchase agreements statewide, make them available. This is not the broadest possible bill that we would have liked. This is a compromise, but we think it makes real progress and could produce more solar in Virginia, which I think is what all of us want. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Is there anyone here to speak in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair and members of the committee, Catherine Bond with Dominion. We're opposed to the bill, although we agree with the patron that there are some topics that are covered that are worthy of discussion over the course of the next several months. But as written, this legislation would significantly expand the number and types of projects, solar installations that are available for subsidy by customers who do not have solar. And that's our primary objection to the legislation.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jefferson with Appalachian Power. The only other point I'll make, along with Dominions, is that this is in a section of the code that back when we're transitioning back into retail rates. And so what we're essentially doing here by putting this language in this section of the code is we are deregulating the renewable energy sector in a regulated environment.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Bighorn with Electric Co-ops. I want to reiterate what the previous speakers have said and just add that this is something that we worked on this summer that we were not able to reach agreement on, but something that we are committed to continue working on with our solar colleagues after this General Assembly session to hopefully find agreement after sometime over the summer. Thank you.
Are we done? Okay.
I'll get the last word.
Yes, you may have the last word.
It is a wonderful process that we have here. This is a process, and I'm trying to push this process. The co-ops, for example, have done some tremendous things over the last year, but they're going to be running up against this ceiling of being able to develop and put more solar on the grid. So I'm hoping you'll look favorably upon this, and if you don't, at least suggest that the Rubin group, if there is such a group after this session, look at this more carefully, because I think if we utilize this technique properly, we can get a lot more solar on the grid. We have a lot more choice to our constituents and create a lot of jobs in the process. So thank you very much.
And Delegate Toscano, it sounds like you've been working on this throughout the summer with them.
I'm not really involved in the group. I observe. I'd love to be involved with the group. I could be recruited very cheaply.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Don?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the patron as well. Just speaking quickly to this bill, and I'd like to make a motion at the appropriate time, but first of all, I do want to commend all the folks that were involved in the Rubin collaborative group that's met since last spring, all throughout the year. I know that we have several bills that have come out from that working group, that are narrowly tailored to at least move the ball forward this year, and I certainly commend that, and I look forward to that conversation. It may be this afternoon, maybe next week, but I think part of that conversation also touched upon a lot of issues that ought to be on the table. There are many other issues that are involved in expanding solar and renewables beyond just what our utilities can agree with our solar industry. So to the extent that we're adding these issues here and having a conversation, I think that's a good thing. I think I know, just based on the dynamics of this conversation, where this bill and many other bills today will end up, including my own, but I think it's a good conversation for us to be able to have in a comprehensive way. And so, and I also wanted to speak up now because unfortunately at 4 o'clock, both Delegate Lindsay and I have to go upstairs to the Higher Education Subcommittee. We have some votes there, and unfortunately we're the only 2 Democrats on that subcommittee, so we'll be gone for about 10 minutes or so. So to the extent that I can move this bill and also also suggested I would be able to, if I was here, I'd be moving all the other bills that are on the agenda. I wanted to move this bill to report with the understanding that if I'm not here to support the other bills later, I apologize, I just can't be here.
Okay, we have a motion to report that's been seconded. We have a substitute motion, non-debatable, to lay the bill on the table. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Thank you, Delegate Toscano. We will continue working with you. Delegate Villanueva asked to go next. He's got a committee that he's got to get to as well.
Madam Chair, can I do it from here?
Yes, you may.
Madam Chair, committee members, House Bill 2018, you've seen this the last several years. The bill, the title is called the Virginia Alternative Energy Coastal Protection Act. What we seek to do is enlist Virginia in joining a regional greenhouse gas initiative similar to the ones that you've seen nationwide, and directs and authorizes Virginia's DEQ to establish guidelines for Virginia's participation in it. This market-based approach will allow for funding with regards to flooding resilience, energy efficiency and clean energy programs, gas emissions, and also, most importantly, Southwest Virginia economic development assistance. Each year that you've seen this bill, we've got more attention. Organizations statewide are participating and waking up to it. Last year, if you recall, by wide margins, we supported Senator Lewis's Shoreline Resiliency Fund. We established that with regards to coastal flooding. The fund was established, but there was no funding towards it. This year, you see Delegate Stolle putting forward appropriations bills and bills with regards to creating a new coastal resiliency czar. This year, before appropriations, military installation commanders talked about flooding, the impact of such. In Transportation Committee, we also talked about flooding and the impact. Again, this is a common sense measure. You've seen localities ask for your support on this. Just this past summer alone, with regards to flooding, Hampton Roads was devastated by Tropical Storm Matthew. The damages of that were over $500 million and still counting. And every dollar that we could raise in support of those efforts are gladly appreciated. Madam Chair, I have a number of folks that could speak briefly to it in support of it. They are here today.
Come forward, please.
Yes, members of the subcommittee, my name is Mike Tidwell. I'm Executive Director of the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. We're a nonprofit dedicated to clean energy solutions to help protect the Bay and our atmosphere. And on behalf of our 20,000 supporters across the state, we wholeheartedly support HB 2018, the Virginia Alternative Energy and Coastal Protection Act. I want to thank Delegate Villanueva for his leadership. Basically, this bill comes down to money. As Delegate Villanueva said, just Tropical Storm Matthew alone inflicted $500 million on coastal Virginia. The city of Norfolk needs at least $1 billion to address sea level rise and recurrent flooding. And the question is, where are these billions of dollars going to come from? They're not going to come from the Army Corps. They're not going to come from Congress. They're not going to come from the state. We're talking about a lot of money. This bill actually is a very elegant policy already in place in 9 states from Maine to Maryland. The Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It generates money for the states. This money is being invested, as HB 2018 would do, in efficiency and renewable energy, and half the money in this bill would then be invested in coastal protection, which is what we need. The good news is that this is the only idea that has come forward that could protect military installations in coastal Virginia as well. And what's new this year is increasingly the Department of Defense is taking into consideration flooding and sea level rise in base realignment and closure considerations. So this is the best strategy that the state of Virginia has to generate billions of dollars over time to address this BRAC issue and preserve our bases here. So I encourage you to support HB 2018. There are lots of groups and municipalities across the state, Virginia Beach, Hampton, Leesburg, and others, the Virginia Municipal League, the City of Norfolk, and on, who do support this bill. So I encourage you to vote positive on this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, Bob Mathias, City of Virginia Beach. City Council included this measure in their legislative package. As been mentioned, Hampton Roads, Norfolk area is more at risk of recurrent flooding than any other area in the U.S. outside of New Orleans. Our military bases access is at risk. We have numerous other issues with recurrent flooding, and this will be a way to pay for the infrastructure that's needed to address this. Hampton Roads is part of the revenue producers for the Commonwealth, one of the biggest ones, and over the long term, recurrent flooding is going to have an effect on our ability to generate money for the Commonwealth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bob Shippey, a volunteer with Sierra Club and Chairwoman. We thank the patron as well. We're strongly supportive of this bill. I think the only thing I'll add to what Mike Tidwell just said is in the states where they're already part of this coalition, this partnership, not only have they seen greenhouse gases go down, of course, but electric bills have actually gone down in these United States, while GDP has gone up 3% faster than states that aren't in the partnership. So there's a real economic benefit here as well that I just want to call out.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Kevin Maurer. I'm with the Virginia Catholic Conference. The bishops of Virginia support this bill. The overwhelming evidence that we see is that this is a crisis. We need to act right now, and we believe that the best way forward is to leverage the free market rather than imposing burdensome regulations. We believe that the free market can push us forward, push our economy forward, and we believe that this bill does that. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Josie Mace with the Virginia Majority. We would like to speak in support of the bill. Communities of color and low-income households in Hampton Roads lack a lot of the resources needed to adapt to this problem and state some of the issues that we're seeing. We believe, just as some of the others mentioned, that this will alleviate a lot of the financial burden off of them, and we do support this bill.
Madam Chairman, my name is William Penman. I'm a citizen of Virginia, and I would like to speak in support of the bill. I commend Delegate Bill Villanueva for presenting the bill again this year and continuing to pursue it. The bill achieves raising funds badly needed to address the recurrent flooding problem. The recurrent flooding problem is getting worse. Mention was made of Hurricane Matthews. However, this happens in our coastal cities on rainy days. Just normal thunderstorms will produce flooding that needs to be addressed. This invokes market solutions to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and address the recurring problems, and I urge you to vote for it. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the committee, Dana Williams with the Virginia Poverty Law Center's Affordable Clean Energy Project, and we believe this helps with resiliency for the long haul, and so we support the bill.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? Do we have anyone here in opposition to the bill?
Madam Chair, Catherine Bond again with Dominion, and with all due respect to the patron, we are opposed to this legislation, primarily because of the increased cost passed directly to electric customers, which is estimated to be in the neighborhood of about $250 million annually, and is incremental to any additional cost related to carbon legislation or regulation.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Beaton with Electric Co-ops. I share their concern about the impact of the ratepayers. Additionally, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty in Washington with regard to energy policy, and it seems an inopportune time to get involved in another avenue of carbon regulation. Thank you.
Madam Chair, Brett Vassy, Virginia Manufacturers Association. We represent 6,000 manufacturers across the Commonwealth. We have a long-standing policy against this particular provision in this bill of the RGGI. We don't support joining the RGGI states. We've spoken with the patron, we understand, and we actually are very sympathetic. Many of our facilities are in the coastal regions, and we do have an issue with sea level rise and flooding, and we do have to address it through infrastructure, but not through taxing our energy. And let me give you an idea, because I want to set the record straight. It was stated that rates have gone down in New England. Let me give you a comparison. The U.S. Energy Information Administration, industrial power, last year in November, $11.96 per kilowatt hour, $11.96 per kilowatt hour. In Virginia, the southeast, excuse me, in the South Atlantic region, we looked at about $6.19 per kilowatt hour. So you do that comparison, it's almost 100% difference. And this tax is one of those reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Final word.
Madam Chair, you've heard a lot of the same arguments every year. Sooner or later, we'll figure this out. Again, this bill is to help advance a lot of the tenets that are in it: energy efficiency, renewables, coastal resiliency, economic development in Southwest Virginia. If I'm back next year, you probably see this bill again.
Madam Chair, I have a motion to extremely gently read.
Okay. I don't think I've heard one like that before, but we'll take it. Okay. All that is not debatable. We're going to extremely gently lay this on the table. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Delegate Villanueva. Okay, Delegate Marshall, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. In 2015,
what's your number?
House Bill 1658.
Okay.
In 2015, when I went door to door, I heard observations and complaints from citizens about intrusions on their privacy, whether it's from big government or from anybody. Amazon monitoring their little clicks as to what they might like or not like, and then getting ads later on. And one woman was nervous that somebody in the federal agency is going to monitor her every time she opens her refrigerator door. So in 2016, I introduced House Bill 379 to attempt to address some of that. Presented to the committee, the representative from Dominion said they were interested, but not the way that that bill was drafted. So this bill was held over for 2016, and this was the work product that former Delegate Jack Rust had worked on, and I had worked with him, and I've introduced it. This does not forbid bulk collection of data. This does protect the individual's privacy and electric usage. Unless there's a need by a law enforcement agency, you can't access this unless the customer or consumer gives consent. So that's the purpose of this measure.
Anybody to speak in favor of that? I know that I got a letter from DMME that they are looking at studying this whole privacy data issue on electric utilities and other issues over the summer because it's a bigger issue than they thought. I just got that yesterday, Delegate Marshall, but I did want to let you know that they are doing a whole big study on it, and I think I have somebody here from the administration to let you know what it is.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you. Hayes Fromme, Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Trade, on behalf of the administration. We conducted, in conjunction with the National Governors Association this fall, a day-long retreat with private sector stakeholders, including utilities, commercial building owners, developers, and operators, to discuss the issue of energy benchmarking and disclosure in commercial buildings. As we went through that day-long retreat, it became abundantly clear that the top issue to be discussed and fleshed out was this issue of data privacy, access to consumption information, and ensuring the protection of consumer data. And so coming out of that retreat, we decided through the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy to create a working group to deal specifically with the issue of data privacy as it relates to energy consumption. And so while we understand Delegate Marshall's desire to see this bill go forward, we would appreciate the opportunity to flesh this out over the course of the next 9 months with potential legislation in 2018.
Thank you. I knew I got that later. Former Delegate Russ, come on up.
Mr. Chairman, John Russ with the committee, and I just want to thank the delegate for the opportunity to work with him over the summer on the language of the bill and how this is set up. This is something that we do support, and we appreciate your consideration for the bill. Frankly, what we found, and I think what Ms. Frommey just said is indicative of that, the company basically felt it had a lot more protection over its data than it does, and that's one of the purposes in bringing forward the bill.
Would you be willing to work with DMME too, or that work group?
Absolutely, that's not an issue, but I was very grateful that Delegate Marshall was willing to work with us.
Okay, I appreciate y'all. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. My name is Chelsea Harnish. I'm with the Virginia Energy Efficiency Council. We are here to speak in opposition to the bill. Members of mine plus myself were at the day-long retreat that Mr. Frommey was just talking about, and we encourage this body to allow that stakeholder process to move forward. The goal is to develop a consensus-based approach on this important issue, and we would like to see that move forward. Thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Abby Johnson with Abacus Property Solutions. We're members of VAEEC and also are opposed to this bill. We were also at the retreat and saw that this was an issue that needed to be expanded on and discussed. Also, we are a private real estate advisory firm, and we have many clients who actually take advantage of green loans that require access to data. So we think it's really important to understand better what needs to be reviewed over the summer. Thank you.
Oh. Well, Chad, I believe I would get up if I was back there.
Building's coming down.
It's really powerful, huh?
I'll tell you what, I don't know if that's Dominion's fault or whose fault is it. Oh, wow. Is that a sign? All right. Delegate Marshall, you have the last word.
My constituents expressed concern for the protection of their privacy in 2015. The administration is just finally catching up to this in 2017. The request that we have here is just for the protection of individual privacy. It does not prevent the disclosure of bulk data for whole communities or neighborhoods or precincts or however. So I would hope that the committee would report the bill, and if the study comes back and has any amendments, they can make their suggestions and recommendations.
All right, thank you.
You noticed that it came down when the opposition was speaking.
No, I know. Right after Hayes spoke, I don't know what happened there. All right, do I have a motion on the bill? And with the encouragement that I sent a letter to this DMME committee and asked Delegate Marshall to participate in that.
That you asked them to ask me to participate.
Oh, yeah, they'll let you participate, right? Absolutely.
All right.
All right, have a motion to lay on the table. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, Delegate Marshall, I'll send a letter. Thank you. Delegate, you see, Delegate Sullivan has 3, Delegate Minshew has 1. So Delegate Minshew, small agriculture generators, and this is a bill that came out of the work group. Is that the movement work group? Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. This is House Bill 2303, which deals with agricultural net metering.
Just 1 second. We need to get the substitute.
There is a substitute.
motion we adopt the substitute. All right, all those in favor say aye. Substitute supports. Delegate Mitchell.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. You may recall back in 2014, I had a bill on agricultural net metering that was expanding the net metering program we have in the books. That was approved, and ever since then we've had a fair number of agricultural users, farmers, and other rural industry landowners taking advantage of solar creation and using the net metering programs. Last year, Mr. Chairman, I had a couple of bills, one of which dealt with agricultural net metering. They were referred to a working group that this committee knows a lot about. It's been called the Rubin Mediation Group. Probably has a number of different names. This is one of the work products of that committee. It does have a Senate companion also going at the same time. What it does, it modifies the current agricultural net metering law that we have in the books and creates a new alternative that we can call agricultural generation, or ag-gen for short. It is the product of a lot of meetings, Mr. Chairman, and like most mediation efforts, there's probably aspects of this bill that no one will find perfect. There's an old saying in politics, Mr. Chairman, that one should not let the enemy, one should not let the perfect be the enemy of the good.
You delegates that out much smoother.
Yeah.
If the delegate Ware was here, he'd tell us exactly who said it and when. I'm not going to get those.
I did too. I thought it was Tim Hugo.
Well, it's been cited by Shakespeare, Voltaire, and Hugo, so you can choose whichever one you want. All three can take credit if you don't remember. But this bill before you is one that does not change agricultural net metering in the investor-owned utilities of Dominion and Appalachian Power. It does make some changes in the co-op territories effective 2 years, and this is coming July the 1st. But grandfathers those current agricultural net metering operators in the co-op territories. There's a number of other technical items, you've probably read them, it caps them to land. And Mr. Chairman, I think this is a bill that moves the ball forward. It allows another option, and the fact that it is here with, I think, a good consensus of utilities, both on the investor-owned and the co-op side, shows that it's a good work product and worthy for reporting. There's a number of folks, Mr. Chairman, who would be honored to speak to the committee if you want to hear them. With that, let me
if we can hear them fast. I know that this one has been something that we've worked on throughout the year. You could, those in favor, if you could come up and yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Cameron Stalker with Segura Solar. We support the bill as a positive collaboration between the solar industry, environmentalists, and the utilities, but we remain concerned that this would incentivize fairly large agricultural projects that could quickly fill up the 1% net metering cap. And we're concerned that this sets a bad precedent by sunsetting agricultural net metering in co-op territories. The bill does more good than bad, but we ask the committee to remember these concerns if they become a significant issue in the future. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Bighorn with Electric Co-ops. I think this bill is a perfect example of the consensus building process that we worked towards all summer. We were able to address and expand the desire of some in the solar community and agricultural community to produce more solar than they necessarily use. We've been able to devise a system whereby they can do that. The utilities feel comfortable with that. In the co-op territories, even after the 2 years, folks will still be able to, should they like the traditional net metering standard, they can partake in a non-residential net metering scenario. So that option is still there. And we support the bill. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Karen Schaufeld. I'm with Powered by Facts, which has a dual purpose of promoting more solar in Virginia's grid and also doing it at the best rate for the ratepayer. And this is an important bill because what it does is gives farmers a reliable source of income for 25 years, which means that they won't be subject to the vagaries of weather as they're doing their agricultural activities. And I strongly appreciate your consideration for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, Catherine Bond from Dominion. We're also in support of the legislation for the reasons previously stated, and also because this has got a market-based approach to compensation.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Ron Jefferson, Appalachian Power, we support the bill.
Mr. Chairman, Chip Dixon, on behalf of the Solar Industry Association, we support the bill.
Economics Committee, Jonathan Harding with Virginia Agribusiness Business Council, and we also support the legislation. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, move to report.
Oh, wait, I got a question. Yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak in opposition.
Okay. Okay, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Mitch King from the Old Mill Power Company in Albemarle County, Virginia. I think most of you know me from previous appearances before the subcommittee. And I'm also speaking today on behalf of Solar Services. The gentleman from that company would like to be here today, but he had a doctor's appointment, so he asked me to say something. Hopefully he can speak before the full committee, but I'll just say what I'm saying for the moment is a very focused objection. And I appreciate the fact that I just got the amendment in the nature of a substitute, and it definitely is approved. My objection is based on two, what's going to seem like relatively minor points, but still something that this subcommittee should keep in mind when it's regulating energy or legislating on energy. The first objection is that in the amended bill, we're giving the co-ops 2 years to terminate their agricultural net metering program. And we really don't know who that's affecting. One of the things that I learned by speaking to Mr. Good from Solar Services in the last couple of days was that he has done probably as many of these agricultural net meter installations as anyone in the state. And he does about one a month. And the typical size is very small, 5,000 watts, and it enables what it was intended to enable, which is a farmer, say with a barn and a house and maybe a couple of outbuildings. It enables them to put some solar panels on the roof. His average size is 20 solar panels on the roof of a barn. You can imagine a barn has got a big roof, typically pulls a lot more than that. That lets him power his home, a couple of outbuildings, and a barn. We don't know how many of those folks that this is going to affect, and so my advice would be, if you go forward with this bill, at least ask the State Corporation Commission to tell you before that 2019 expiration date, how many small farmers did we impact with this? Okay, so that would be my advice. Add some words calling for a report. The second thing I want to point out is a bill should really change something, especially if you want to wrap your arms around it and say, you know, we've moved the needle forward in some way. And this bill just fails to do that. I asked to be a part of the Ruben Group's deliberations because I always worry about these kinds of things, and I was told that my help wasn't needed, and that's fine. But I want to call your attention to, on the amendment in the nature of a substitute, line 159, where it says that one of the qualifications is that the qualifying facility shall be a small power production facility pursuant to the Public Utility Regulatory Policies Act of 1978. That act, that federal law, has been around since 1978, and in compliance with that law, Virginia's utilities had to pass rate schedules that told any qualifying facility like this how much it was going to be paid for its electricity. Okay? Those rate schedules exist today. There's Schedule 19 on the Dominion side, Schedule SPP, which stands for Small Power Producer, on the APCO side. And I don't know what the names are for the various co-ops, but they can tell you. So what I wanted to point out to you that, okay, bear in mind, it's been around for decades, and we've had to have a schedule. I got to look at the big number here. On line 207 of the amendment in the nature of substitute, notice that the utilities are required to make a compliance filing containing a schedule to accommodate these small agricultural generators. So there's going to be a compliance filing and a schedule. But notice on line 211, the utilities shall not be required to undergo rate proceedings or individual proceedings of any kind to implement the provisions of this act. What that means is, what applies to these small agricultural generators is the same rate schedule that has applied ever since PURPA was enacted in 1978. So it's okay, in my mind, it's kind of a feel-good bill, but nothing changes. The compliance filing consists of the utility pointing to its existing rate schedule and saying, we've had this one for decades, here it is. Compliance filing done. So what do you do about a bill that really doesn't change the needle? Let it go. If you're going to let it go, please add those words that call for some data from the State Corporation Commission to tell you how many of these agricultural net meter customers in the co-op territories are actually denying this opportunity.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, again, Tony Smith, CEO of Secure Futures, and I'm speaking on behalf of Secure Futures and members of the Virginia Distributed Solar Alliance. As a group, as you heard earlier, we represent the majority of distributed solar installation in the state, the majority of the jobs created in Virginia in solar. Our concern is twofold. I think primarily we're mystified. We were not party to the Rubin Group discussions on this bill, yet we represent the majority of distributed solar generation in the state. So I think there is something not quite complete about those deliberations that arrived in today's conclusion. Like you heard from Mr. King, there's a concern, we have two concerns. One is that what this bill does is essentially replicate what's already built into PURPA law as a legally enforceable obligation for utilities. So there's nothing new there. The only new part of the bill is taking something away from ag customers. And we're wondering, why should we have legislation that takes something away from ag customers? And I'm really baffled why the group supposedly representing ag customers would advocate for taking something away in exchange for something that already is. We're really baffled. So we would petition members of this committee to consider tabling this bill just so that there's more opportunity to study the ramifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Ivy Main with Power for the People, VA. I have nothing but respect for Delegate Minshew. I know him to be a true friend of renewable energy, and it really pains me to speak against his bill, but as it's been explained, under PURPA, people already have the right to put up facilities on their property and sell the power at the utilities avoided cost. And this bill reiterates, maybe it got some streamlining in there, but it's taking away a right that already exists. And I think more significantly, even though these farmers would not be net metering, it says it's putting it under the net metering cap. And then a small cooperative, a few farms using this program would take up the 1% and leave nothing for other farmers and for other customers, commercial customers, residential customers, who would then not be able to do any kind of net metering. And that is fundamentally unfair. And so we would ask you to vote down a bit. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Aaron Such. I am with VA Sun. We're a constituent group that believes that rooftop solar is the best way to ensure energy freedom, create jobs, and improve resilience and reliability of the electric grid. I think we're in agreement that the agricultural constituency is very important and really support the Rubin process in that it allows this constituency, or is encouraging this constituency, to adopt solar. However, I would like to elevate a couple concerns for consideration by the committee that echo some that were echoed earlier. And those being specifically, it does count against the 1% limit on net metering, although this is a buy all, sell all arrangement, not under the net metering statute. That is of concern because it does affect another ratepayer base. The second concern is that Virginia Sun in the last 3 years has helped more than 500 Virginians go solar and installed about 3 megawatts worth of installed capacity. And in the breadth of our program, we've seen the primary barriers for agricultural facilities, one of the main ones being issues in Dominion territory with aggregation of meters. And what that simply means is if you have a solar generator on a barn that produces a surplus, you should be able, under current law, to apply that surplus to an electric meter that has more of a load. It's a simple accounting function. What we're seeing from our installers is that Dominion is applying excess facilities charges. in a way that's bureaucratic and unclear to both the installer and to the system owner. These excess facilities charges charge as if the meter and the wiring wasn't already there. So we're seeing that as a primary barrier, and that is not addressed in this bill. So again, I would like to echo our support of agricultural generators being able to have more options, but really for the consideration of the committee, look into these excess facilities charges, because we're seeing a lot of basically bureaucratic red tape for an accounting function that shouldn't happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
Madam Chairwoman, members of the subcommittee, Karina Bell representing Sierra Club Virginia chapter. And we do oppose the bill for some of the reasons previously stated, but I want to state that with respect to the patron and both the process that developed this legislation, Karen and others particularly, we do appreciate this process that developed this legislation, and of the 3 work products that developed from this process, the Rubin Group, we are supportive of 2 out of the 3. We just do have concerns remaining on this 3rd product, and I do think that some of these concerns could have been alleviated if the environmental community had been included from the very beginning of the process, or even brought in at a later stage. As it was, the community solar legislation did get feedback from the environmental community, but this one did not, and I feel that some very crucial factors were overlooked, including both the cap, as was discussed earlier, and the sunsetting of the agricultural net metering programs that will occur in the active territory. We're concerned that we're seeing a successful program replaced with one that is untested. So those are my concerns. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Hayes Fromme, on behalf of the Governor's Office, I apologize, I think I'm going out of order. But I did want to say that the administration does support this bill. We recognize the hard work that has gone into this bill and a couple of other ones that have floated around. And we know that consensus can be very difficult. And we also recognize that not everything will please everybody, but from the administration standpoint, we do support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's a question for the patron. Randy, Delegate Minshew. Quick question.
Delegate Minshew, we talked about on line 144, it says small agriculture generators. And everything we have heard today is talked about solar. I have a farm in my area that is using methane gas from cows, it's a dairy farm, to run a generator. So is that considered a small agriculture generator?
My answer would be yes. It's not just solar. It's there's a number of other renewables. I believe methane, geothermal would be one. Maybe a few others I can't even think of, Dr. Marshall. But yes, there have been very successful methane. And best I know, methane is a renewable resource produced by other people who walk this planet.
Well, the cows do it every day, so.
Mr. Chairman, I have no real rebuttal. I might add that to share with you my chief patron's viewpoint. When this bill came out of the mediation group, I'm a lawyer. There's 3 lawyers up there. Lawyers can edit anything. When I first saw this bill, I took my red pen and said, okay, what lines am I going to change? But Mr. Chairman, that would kind of be contempt of the process. So I purposely, withheld my own editing purview and followed the bill exactly as it came out of the mediation group, because I thought that was kind of integrity of the process.
All right. Moving report. Second. I have a motion to recommend reporting and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Delegate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Delegate Sullivan. Which one do you want to start?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How about we start with 1465? I'm painfully aware of the hour.
Minshew's other bill, he had another bill on, but we referred that to courts. In committee, full committee, we referred the main one to courts.
There is an amendment.
1465?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Amendment or a substitute? Just an amendment?
It's just an amendment.
Okay. Now, wait a minute, I get it.
You can contact with me about it.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, what Mr. Munyon is passing out is a substitute that conforms the bill to a bill that's already moved through the Senate. This bill should look familiar to you all.
Have a motion to adopt substitute. Get it before us. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Okay, motion to substitute, of course. Delegate Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is the first of several bills I have that relate to energy efficiency issues, which I think there is broad consensus is the least expensive and cleanest way to meet customers and utilities' energy needs. This bill is identical to one that this committee passed last year, 21-1, in which the House passed 86-11. We then sort of stubbed our toe over in the Senate, but we've been working both sides of the Capitol this year. And as I said, the corresponding Senate bill has already passed out of the Senate 34-4. It was in 2007, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman, that the Commonwealth adopted the goal of improving our energy efficiency by 10% by the year 2022, and Governor McAuliffe has actually accelerated that to 2020. The issue that this bill is meant to address is that we've not been doing anything to monitor our progress in that regard. We do know that we're way behind, though. DMME issued a report earlier this year in which it took a snapshot of where we are, and we are way behind on our energy efficiency improvement goals. What 1465 does, Mr. Chairman, is simply require DMME to include in a report that it already does annually an analysis of what kind of progress we're making with respect to our goal that is now in 2020. So it is simply a way for the General Assembly, the Governor, and the Governor's Energy Efficiency Task Force to gather data and monitor how we're doing on our already stated goals.
All right. You got anybody to speak in favor of your bill?
I think so, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Quickly, let's say we're in favor.
Hi, Chelsea Harnish, Virginia Energy Efficiency Council. We worked with the delegate last year and this year, and we're happy to report that a companion bill has already passed the Senate.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm Deborah Jacobson. I'm a Virginia resident, and I'd like to speak in strong support of this bill. It reminds me of a hearing that I participated in as a staff person back in 1981 when there was an effort to dismantle the Department of Energy's Federal Energy Management Program. And the General Accounting Office testified at that time and compared an analogy of a football team. And I think that's appropriate with Super Bowl Sunday coming up. He emphasized that a football team has to have a quarterback who is calling the overall plays, or else it is in a total state of disorganization. And I think you would agree that the quarterback, as well as the coaches, also has to know the score. And I think this bill would allow us to know the score. And I think if the members of the General Assembly and the utilities don't know the score in terms of where the state is on energy efficiency, I think the ratepayers would be very disappointed. So I urge you to proceed with this bill. Thank you.
Here comes your quarterback.
Mr. Chairman, past my sports prime by about 25 years. Hayes Farley, Governor's Office. We recommended amendments to Delegate Sullivan and to the companion legislation on the Senate side to reduce the administrative burden on the Department of Mines, Minerals, and Energy, essentially to allow them to embed what is being asked for here into an existing report that they're doing. The amendments are adopted, so we support this legislation.
Thank you.
My name is William Penniman. I'm the Conservation Chair and the Energy Efficiency Issues Chair for the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club, and I'm just here to speak in support of this bill. It's primarily an informational bill. The DMME report that was provided earlier this year was highly informative, and the legislature and public ought to get that information annually. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Rachel Speed on behalf of Dominion, and we are speaking in support of this bill. This bill is not changing the voluntary energy policy or reduction goal. Instead, it is simply requesting that the DMME provide a report stating the Commonwealth's progress toward this goal. Thank you.
voices. We're focused on protecting the land, air, and water of the Appalachian Mountain region, and for the reasons already put forth by the speakers before me, we are in support of this bill. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to speak for or against House Bill 1465? All right, Delegate Sullivan, if you could continue. Delegate King had to go upstairs. He's before him in another, but he's coming right back in. If you could do your next, we're going to wait on him. We have to wait on him to get back.
Sure. Or
Habib.
Sure.
You can pick whichever one you want.
You want me to go to the four corners here? I can't imagine you want me to delay too long. Why don't we do 1703?
That'd be fine.
1703, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is an effort essentially to tap the accelerator on the Commonwealth's energy efficiency efforts. And if I might just very briefly, when I was in front of the committee last year, we cited some statistics. I have the most recent statistics out of the Energy Information Administration as part of the Federal Department of Energy. This has to do with this 2015 information. We are very proud in Virginia of our very low energy costs, our rates, our electric rates. We are the, let's see, there are 16 states, so we're the, I guess that makes us the we're the third in the South Atlantic in terms of having good electrical rates, and there are 16 other states with lower average prices than we do nationally. But what we have, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, is very high consumption rates and bills. We have the fifth highest average monthly consumption. These are residential numbers, meaning there are 46 states in the Union with lower monthly consumption than we do, and we are the highest in the South Atlantic region of the country. So there's no question that we can and should be doing better on energy efficiency. And as I said, the General Assembly has already recognized improving our energy efficiency as in the public interest. What this bill seems to do, tries to do, 1703, is stretch us and put the foot on the accelerator, and through 2032 extend an energy efficiency resource standard which sort of ramps up year by year. It empowers the State Corporation Commission to design performance incentives to reward utilities for progress, and it would take, as I said, the Commonwealth's energy efficiency efforts and commitment to a new level. That's what 1703 does, Mr. Chairman.
All right. You have anybody to speak in favor?
I think so.
All right. Does this have a companion Senate bill?
It does not.
Okay.
Again, William Penniman on behalf of the Virginia chapter of the Sierra Club. This bill is a very important bill. If you look at the report put out by DMME earlier this past year, how far we've gotten on the 10% voluntary goal, we've gotten 10% of the way to the 10% goal. In other words, we were at 1% with the prospects of getting maybe 24%, but basically not going anywhere. As rated by the American Council for an energy efficient economy, which surveys states, Virginia ranks last for utility programs. It's one of only 2 states with a negative score, below 0 score. We are simply not getting anywhere with our current system. 26 states have energy efficiency resource standards. These include states like Texas, Iowa, Minnesota, states from all over the United States have mandatory standards. This would do 3 things. It would prioritize energy efficiency when it's cheaper and cleaner than other sources of energy. And it would allow the State Corporation Commission to prioritize and order implementation of better, cheaper programs.
You're throwing terminology out at me that I'm not in the energy efficient resource standard business.
Yes, sir.
So I'm not necessarily familiar with the use of that phraseology.
Okay.
What are you talking about?
Okay. An energy efficiency resource standard is one that sets a schedule, such as is in the third part of this bill, of a percentage reduction each year, perhaps averaged over a period.
All right, so let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
So is that like if I buy a new washer for my clothes, and they've got, is someone made that, they call it energy efficient?
That would end up contributing, but a utility can, through its programs, encourage and assist customers in getting more efficient equipment, which will reduce the overall need for burning fuels, for building new facilities, for building controversial transmission lines and stuff.
Can they recommend ones that actually clean clothes?
Of course.
I seriously, I'm not joking. It's frustrating to me because I hear about, you get this energy efficient, by the top of the line, spend $1,000 for a washer, supposed to be energy efficient, and then you got to run it for 2.5 hours to try to get your clothes. And the whole clothes thing, it ran for 15 minutes and the clothes got clean. You have to wash it 3 times. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's like they've changed the rules about the toilet. You got to have a little bit of water in the toilet, and then you have to flush the toilet 4 times.
These programs do not mandate that any individual customer choose a particular appliance or not. It gives incentives to implementing more efficient technology, whether it's a better heat pump, a better refrigerator, other devices where you can get long-term savings that will mean millions, hundreds of millions of dollars for a state the size of Virginia. It's been implemented in other states successfully, and the accounting shows very, very substantial savings that are achieved. This bill would do it in a way that moves beyond voluntary to something that's required and effectively empowers the State Corporation Commission to implement such a program. It would be the greatest single step we could make toward catching up with the rest of the United States in the area of energy efficiency, where at least in the utility programs we're running last. So we encourage you to vote for the program. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm David Gardner. I run a consulting firm based in Arlington called David Gardner and Associates, a very creative naming. I'm here today on behalf of the Alliance for Industrial Efficiency, a coalition of businesses and nonprofits that, as its name suggests, supports industrial efficiency. So we're thinking about efficiency among the members of the Virginia Manufacturers Association and people who are like that. We did a study last year which looked at a proposal very similar to Delegate Sullivan's and found that the approach would save industrials only, the other resident, $2.3 billion between now and 2030. Other ratepayers in the state would save more, but it's a very significant way to make Virginia's manufacturers more competitive in a tough business. So we support the legislation. I would reinforce one point that the previous speaker made, which is that this is an idea that's popular in other states. I just made a list of 8 states which have both a Republican governor and a Republican legislature and have a policy like the one that Delegate Sullivan is proposing. Those include Arizona, Arkansas, Iowa, Michigan, New Hampshire, Ohio, Texas, and Wisconsin. Michigan, Governor Snyder just signed into law a strengthening of their program. And he did so, and I quote, because he said it would save Michigan residents millions of dollars on their electric bills. So that's the reason to support Delegate Sullivan's bill, is because it's not only going to save Virginia residents, but also Virginia businesses, billions on their bill.
Anybody else to speak against, or anybody to speak against? Nobody spoke against it, so.
Mr. Chairman, Bill Murray on behalf of Dominion. I'll try to be very brief. With reference to the testimony you've heard so far, the most, frankly, effective way to encourage energy efficiency is high prices. And what you're going to find is states with high prices tend to do pretty well on energy efficiency because electricity is expensive and people are reticent to use much of it. And just think about your own behavior when gas is $4 versus when it's $2. And that's sort of an analogy. As far as comparisons of Virginia energy usage to other states, it's a little bit of an unfair comparison for this reason. We are one of the northernmost states where it's common to heat with electricity. In the Northeast, you typically use fuel oil and natural gas because a heat pump is not a very good way to heat if it gets very, very cold. Heat pump's an extremely good way to heat in a state like Virginia or to the south where it seldom gets below, say, 30 or 25 or 30 degrees. It's not very effective. Anybody who has a heat pump knows when it's 0, your heat pump
is spending very effectively. So we have air conditioning load like a southern state, but we are the northernmost of the southern states, so we've also got heating load. And for that reason, it's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison. As far as the specific mandate in the bill and the concern that we would have about it, I'll use a healthcare analogy as a lapsed hospital lobbyist. Hospitals absolutely ought to have programs to help patients maintain a healthy weight and avoid other risk factors. They absolutely ought to help in any way they can, but you don't say a hospital is responsible for the level of obesity in a community. They ought to be a participant in it, but you don't hold them accountable for individual patient behavior. Similarly, utilities can absolutely have programs, and this committee worked 9 years ago on legislation that ensures that the programs we have are cost effective. But the actual savings of electricity is by behavioral change from customers. And that's something we absolutely want to help with, but we don't think it's reasonable to have a mandate for it. For those reasons, we would respectfully oppose the bill.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I guess. Isn't it the case, too, that localities implement, there are individual localities that implement programs to help people become more energy efficient?
You all, and this is not legislation that we follow closely, but there have been programs to allow various creative finance options for energy efficiency improvements. I will say, in general, energy efficiency works best when it's baked in the cake. It's a building code improvement, it's an appliance upgrade, versus when you rely on discrete behavioral changes. And so there's been certainly success. We support those. There's also one of the most powerful tools for energy efficiency is actually the building code. And that's something that I think if you look not just at utility programs, but the total of public policy, Virginia's got some very reasonable approaches.
All right. Anyone else? Yes, sir. Bill, drop his notes.
Mr. Chairman, Andrew Beehorn on behalf of the electric co-ops. I appreciate what Delegate Sullivan is doing on this, specifically with energy efficiency. We've been able to work with him on several other issues. But we do have concerns with this, specifically the mandates. Specifically that a lot of the low-hanging fruit with regards to energy efficiency has already been gotten, and the next round of gets come at a very high price tag. Our service territory, a lot like your legislative districts, are very rural, and we tend to have customer owners that can least afford to pay for the energy efficiency upgrades themselves or the rate impacts that come with us doing the upgrades. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Brett Bassey, Virginia Manufacturers Association. We don't support this particular legislation. We do work in the energy efficiency business. The market dictates our efficiency, not the government or a program through a utility. We'd like to keep it that way, but we also do want to point out in this bill and in 1636, there is a very important change to public policy that we had negotiated several years ago. That on energy efficiency programs, there are 4 tests used for the SEC. Only 1 test can't be used exclusively. This changes it to state that the total resource test is in the public interest. It elevates it to the primary test. That is a very, very important public policy in this bill and in 1636 that would change the calculus on what is approved by the SEC. We do not support that provision.
All right, thank you. And anybody else? All right. You have the...
Last word, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You know, when you're standing where I'm standing, you try to read the tea leaves. I think what you heard, even from the folks who stated their opposition, was a general agreement about the importance of energy efficiency and how we can do better. We are doing some things now, but how we can do better. If the committee is so inclined, Mr. Chairman, if you were so inclined, and if, as I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, I would suggest that this might be something proper to continue to look at, perhaps even in what we've been calling the Rubin group. Because remember, our current voluntary standards expire in a few years. And the question becomes, what this bill does is focus more on another, the next decade. And we ought to try to be in front of what happens in 2020 or 2022. So I don't think, I guess what I'm trying to say is, I hope this won't fall off the committee's radar.
Well, hopefully it won't. You just have to keep reminding us and maybe table it. And if there's a work group that comes out, we'll work with them. But if there's a work group that's continuing to work, I don't know if the Rubin group's going to continue. But
no one knows. But I'd appreciate the chairman I certainly will keep coming back, but I'd appreciate if the chairman could work with me on keeping that on whatever entities out there on their radars.
We have a motion on House Bill 1703. That motion is second. Well, have all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? And we never did vote on the 11465 that passed the Senate, and I didn't hear any opposition. All right, motion went on the table, it's not debatable. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right.
Mr. Chairman, just so we close the loop, there was 1636.
Yes.
One of the earlier
this is the total resource.
witnesses is the total resource cost test. This would, as one of the witnesses talked about, elevate the total resource cost test as being a test that, if when applied to energy efficiency program, if an energy efficiency program passes the total resource cost test, this would direct the State Corporation Commission to approve that energy information. It's meant to streamline the process, frankly make it easier for utilities to get energy efficiency programs approved by the SCC.
Okay. Now, the State Corporation Commission did look at this in the report we got December 2016. Is that right? Maybe that they could come up here and tell us whatever we go up here and tell us what. I know all of you got this report and read it, but maybe we can hear it again.
Memorized it, I'm sure.
Yes. I think you conducted it as a result of what we asked you to do. Is that right? And I'm looking at page 15 of the report. And the commission directed its staff to draft proposed rules and anticipates commencing a formal rulemaking proceeding during the first quarter of 2017 with associated public notice and appropriate opportunity for comment by interested persons and entities in a hearing before the commission. And that has related to energy efficiency programs, et cetera. Is that right? Is that what your all's intent is to do? That may be, and I think that may be what we need to wait on, because they are in the process of doing some rulemaking.
Yes, sir. I'm Cody Walker, I'm with the commission staff. The rulemaking would establish regulations related to the measurement and verification of energy efficiency programs. So it would be to develop a way of looking back at the programs and assessing how accurate, how much they produce and how well they perform.
Well, it seems like that would answer a lot of questions that we've been talking about today. Once that report comes out, whether energy efficiency, where it's at, what's going on, and how we're measuring it.
Better measurement would certainly give you a better sense of how well the programs are doing and whether they're producing the desired results or not.
And do you suspect this will be done that you're going to be working on this relatively quick?
Well, the rulemaking is to be established during this first quarter of this year, and then it will have to go through the process of notice and public comment and so forth. So my expectation is it will be finished before the end of the year.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions on that? I think it would be great if you included Delegate Sullivan in on some of those activities that you all are doing down there, because I know that he's very interested in energy efficiency, and it seems like that this might be the better way to go, Delegate Sullivan. It might answer some of your questions. I don't know.
Fair enough, Mr. Chairman. I think there is one.
Come on up. I don't want to. I knew that I had this report here. I knew they were doing something. I just wanted to bring them up to tell us what they were doing. This was the commission.
So again, on behalf of the Sierra Club, I just make a few points. One, we support Delegate Sullivan's bill. Research has consistently shown that energy efficiency solutions are vastly cheaper than alternatives. The most recent report by AC Tripoli had been less than half the cost of natural gas combined cycle over the life of the project. They are much cheaper. They never get through in Virginia. We are behind every other state on utility-sponsored efficiency programs. This bill 1636 would retain a voluntary approach. It doesn't have a mandate for the 10% reduction. Nevertheless, it would simplify approval by simply saying if the energy efficiency solution is cheaper and have greater benefits than alternatives, then it should be approved. If the costs are less than the benefits, it should be approved. And so we encourage you to pursue it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Delegate Sullivan?
I nothing really to add, other than, as I said before, Mr. Chairman, between the SEC's work and whatever other entity might continue its work over the summer, I hope through the offices, good offices of you, Mr. Chairman, and the committee, we can keep these bills on the radar screen.
I think we can do that with this rulemaking process. All right, do I have hopefully you'll include him on that, so, okay. Thank you. Have a motion? Have a second. Lay the bill gently on the table with the understanding there's going to be some rules, and we'll be able to look at those rules and come back next year.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Okay. 2 noes. Thank you. We have delegates. Key.
Mr. Chairman, can I do it from here or should I go?
Yes, you go.
Okay, thank you. I think I know why they call this a subcommittee on energy, because I'm running out of it, running up and down the stairs between all the conflicts that I have. But first of all, I want to thank I started saying this earlier, but I want to thank the working group that was formed out of this subcommittee as well as the Senate, and for the members who are participating both on the industry side and the members on this side. I want to thank you for the diligent efforts. Obviously, we would like to think, at least from my side of the aisle, I'd like to think of that as a good first step, but obviously not the last step, because we have a lot more work that we have to get done. And in that spirit of adding more pieces to the puzzle as it's coming forward and as we go forward into next year and the year after, I want to present to you House Bill 2112. This bill would create a community renewable projects, which many of the members here are familiar with. And the goal for this bill is to try to fill that gap that was identified in the conversations in the Rubin discussions. I wasn't part of that. I didn't attend it. I went to the first subcommittee meeting on that, but based on the conversations I've had with those that were participating, I thought it was a good, fruitful conversations to try to find some common ground. But obviously, when you only have 2 parties in any room, when you find common ground, there are many other folks that could add to that conversation that weren't able to do so. And so, to the extent that we're talking about the solar industry and the utilities trying to figure out a simple, easy way for us to get them to identify that common ground, I think one area that was missing is the smaller projects, specifically community-based projects, those that will focus on not just solar but all renewables. And so what this will do is require the State Corporation Commission to develop what we call the community renewable projects as a viable option for consumers who want to directly participate in this marketplace. And I think it might be better if I could just have groups, given that you've all been talking, I missed some of the conversations, it might be better for just folks to come up and speak for or against, and then see if we can have some questions around it, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman.
All right, that'd be fine. All those quickly who are in favor, come on up. Yes, ma'am. Let's pull that.
I'm Susan Stillman, and I represent the 16,000 members of the Sierra Club. In response to this bill, and we are in support of it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. A residential or community solar, renewable solar product, or renewable projects like this, solar or wind, would allow people who have homes that aren't suitable for solar, that have too many trees, or renters or condo owners that would like to invest, take our own capital, and buy into systems that we would then at some point own and benefit from that ownership if we choose to do it that way. It would make our per kilowatt hour cost less because we'd be able to build bigger systems that we might be able to put on our own homes. And of course, you wouldn't put wind energy on your home. Anyway, it's a really flexible system. It allows for the utility to own it or for a group of residents in the state to own it. It's a complement to a bill you're going to see that comes in after crossover that it does not compete with that bill, and that's SB 1393. We really hope you will support this bill. There are a lot of people where I come from, up in Northern Virginia. I'm a constituent of Delegate Keams. We have lots of trees, we have lots of roofs that aren't oriented properly, and lots of people that live in rental properties, and we'd like to own our generation and be able to invest in an up-and-coming way to generate electricity.
I was just thinking, it takes a lot of space for 20 megawatts. I don't know.
Right, so I have a brother who has a farm, right? I could invest in a system on it, along with some of my neighbors who don't have the right kind of orientation or the wrong kinds of roofs.
Okay.
So I encourage you to vote in favor of this. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm Cameron Stalker with Segura Solar. We would like to support House Bill 2112. The bill would resolve many more small community projects that would be a significant benefit to solar businesses like us. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Again, my name is Ryan Coles with Alt Energy. We are a solar contractor. We are in support of House Bill 2112. Again, it provides jobs locally. It allows other people that might not be able to get solar. It allows everyone to buy into it. We do support this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Aaron Such from Virginia Sun. I strongly support it. Just wanted to call attention to the fact that distinguishes it's real community solar. It allows for-profit or non-profit organizations in a community to directly benefit from it. So again, strongly urge you. Thank you.
Anyone else to speak? Anyone against the bill?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, with all due respect to the patron, I'm Catherine Bond with Dominion. We are opposed to this bill. Unlike the bill that's going through the Senate, it came out of the Rubin group. This bill differs. I'll draw your attention to lines 53 to 57. Two important provisions. One is that it allows third parties to sell energy and act like utilities without any oversight by the State Corporations Commission. It also mandates that the utilities buy the energy from those facilities, regardless of whether they're fully subscribed or not. So our concerns are related to the lack of oversight and the lack of assurance that non-participating customers will be asked to pay for unsubscribed costs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sam Brumberg with Virginia's Electric Cooperatives. We also oppose the bill and are supportive of the bill coming out of the Rubin process that will come over to you, Senate Bill 1393. And I'll just second the response comments. Thank you.
And there are some other bills coming over that did not get filed in the House that would that came out of Rubin subcommittee. Yes. Yes.
Hi, my name is Francis Hodsall. I'm on the board of the Solar Association of MDBCA. I'm also a developer in Virginia. We commend the efforts of this bill. We believe that the process we went through, the Rubin stakeholder process, resulted in a community solar bill that considered all the needs of the various stakeholders. And so for that reason, we don't support this bill. We support the bill that's going to come through crossover.
I think I heard the Dominion say that this would, the one coming over does not go back on the rate, holders at home. Is that correct? Yeah.
That's right. That was something that was carefully considered exactly what the impacts would be.
All right. Anyone else? Delegate Keene.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. And just to make sure everybody's on the same page, there was a Senate version of this bill that was identical, introduced by Senator Wexton, And in the Senate last week, I believe that that version of the bill was incorporated into one of Senator Wagner's bills. I'm not sure which one, but as obviously we'll see these bills in the future. But the point there is that, at least in the Senate side, I think they did see the merit of the idea, if not the line-by-line language, of the idea of incorporating a community project component to this conversation. So that's going to be a conversation that we'll have again. And again, my goal here is to make sure that all of us understand that this is not the end of the process, but this is the beginning of hopefully a long-term goodwill, good faith conversation among all sectors of the industry as well as the consumer side and of course our friends in the environmental community to make sure that we really put Virginia back on track to being the #1 energy and clean energy leader in not only in the Mid-Atlantic coast but across the nation, and for our state's policies to really reflect our future so that we can constantly attract the businesses as well as the consumers' benefits. So that's the reason why I brought this bill forward, and if it's not inappropriate, I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. Now that I have two more Democrats in the room, I'd like to move Bill 2112.
This is not, it's not a Republican bill.
I'm not just saying.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Anyway.
Can a member move his own bill?
You can move it. He's gonna move it. Yeah, he can move it. Yeah, she's second. Move it second.
Substitute motion, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah.
Well, never mind. Go ahead.
All right, we have a motion to report in a second.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Second. Okay. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Aye. Raise your hand. 3 noes. 2 noes. Aye. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 noes. All right, thank you. All right, we're working hard here. You've got a ladder down here. But the last bill, I think, is 2390. 2390 is there there's not such a okay, what 2390 does, it expands the pilot program for renewable energy power purchase agreements into the AEP territory, and currently I know that it's approved in Dominion service territory, but what this one would do is that within AEP certified service territory, nonprofit private institutions of higher education would be deemed to be eligible to participate in this pilot program, and this would be up to 10 megawatts. I think though the parties are working on an agreement that later on would probably be adopted maybe over the Senate. I think the parties have basically agreed, and that's basically what this bill does. There's been some higher institutions, private institutions, really wanting to do these type projects, and that's why we had the bill. So I saw Reggie somewhere. There you are.
Mr. Chairman, Reggie Young, representing the Council of Independent College in Virginia, have done a good job of explaining that we already have this pilot project in the Dominion territory. This will allow the pilot project to be extended into the territory of Appalachian Power Company, and those colleges wanting to participate in some expansion of their solar capabilities there. We do have 2 amendments to this that we reached agreement on, but we weren't able to get them to your esteemed attorney here before the meeting, so we will just work out to this to do it. But it is to reduce it to 7 megawatts from 10 by agreement with APCO, and the other amendment is to ensure that the colleges that are already using 100% renewable is not included within that 7 megawatt.
No, okay. All right. Anybody to speak against that? Well, yeah, I thought I was doing good. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Tony Smith, CEO of Secure Futures. We want to support this bill. We realize the train's out of the station, and we think it's a good thing to set a precedent in APCO territory for PPA pilot program. And I would encourage CICB and APCO to push the envelope a little harder next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I remain Sierra Club. I think it's great to get PPAs in APCO territory, but this bill would allow it for private colleges and universities only, and nobody else. And I think that sends a really terrible message that you're closing off public institutions, you're closing off local government, libraries and nonprofits of all kinds, and I just think that really sends a bad message. So I would hope you would amend this to open it to any tax-exempt entity.
Thank you. That's why I think we're doing a pilot program, just to try to see what is going on.
Cameron Stalker with Segura Solar. We oppose this legislation because it would favor one class of customers, as everyone else has stated, at the expense of all other customers. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Will Cleveland. I'm an attorney with the Southern Environmental Law Center. And while we greatly appreciate your efforts to expand access to renewable energy for individuals who can't afford to do it on their own, I do have some concerns about this bill. Not sure if everybody on the committee is aware of this, but the access and legality of PPAs in Virginia is currently subject to hot litigation at the State Corporation Commission, SELC, at least one SEC hearing examiner, and just last week the Attorney General's office filed a brief stating that PPAs are currently available to everybody across the state. Our concern is that this bill would actually undercut that argument right now, restrict what is currently already available. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else? Do I have a motion on the bill? Recommend before we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay. All right, I think, unless I'm confused, I think that completes our docket. Is that right? Okay, thank y'all.